side. Work. There we are.
All right, let's call to order the meeting for the Green Bay Traffic, Bicycle, and Pedestrian Commission for Monday, July 17th, 2017. Under general business number 1, approval of the agenda.
And Mr. Chairman, I would move approval of 1 and 2.
May
Okay.
I interject? Alderman Barb Dorf, when I spoke to her on Friday, she had asked that item 4 be moved to the end of the agenda to accommodate her being away at a meeting. She thought that she'd be about 15 minutes tardy,
Okay.
but had wanted to do that, so
Okay.
on her behalf, if we could get item 4 moved to the end.
Okay. So is that a separate motion? Or
No,
number one, so
I'll
number
just
1,
accept that as part of the agenda. As an
1 and 2, or do we
amendment
need to break
the
them
agenda.
separately?
I guess, you could have the same people do that with the
All right.
amended agenda, that's fine.
Okay, motion been made. Second, all in favor for 1 and 2?
Aye.
Motion carries. 3, report by the police department of 2017 first quarter serious injury and fatality crashes.
Two incidents to report for second quarter. First one was from Easter Sunday on the 16th of April. Officers had responded to the area of 9th Street and Broadway for a complaint of an intoxicated male who was attempting to break in both the vehicles and residences. Officers had been given a description of the male that was involved. One officer did locate the subject just after he had managed to enter and start a vehicle. The officer observed the subject driving northbound in an alley and turned westbound onto 9th Street. He attempted to stop the vehicle at the east side of the intersection of Ashland Avenue and 9th Street, and when he turned on his lights, subject took off, accelerating to an excessively high rate of speed for the area. It was estimated at over 100 miles per hour. The officer initially began pursuing, however, realized the danger imposed on the public. He discontinued the pursuit. Was approximately 5 blocks behind the vehicle at the time the male that was driving the vehicle, which was stolen, lost control and struck a tree in the 1100 block of 9th Street. Vehicle, after striking the tree, split into 2, struck a house in the middle of the block and a vehicle, and then the back half of the vehicle that had been stolen wound up in the 3rd yard down. The front half was in the first yard. Additional investigation, because this was a officer involved case where a death was the result of the officer's actions. The additional investigation as far as any potential criminal matters was conducted by Appleton PD, and the reconstruction on the report is done by Wisconsin State Patrol. The second incident was on June 27th, about 6:28 in the evening. Officers were dispatched to the area of the 1300 block of Nelson Drive in reference to a vehicle versus pedestrian crash. The initial investigation shows that the vehicle was northbound on Nelson Street, operating in the proper traffic lane. A pedestrian who is a frequent walker in that area had been crossing the road west to east and was struck in the middle of the northbound lane. The vehicle operator's license status at the time of the accident was suspended, and he had also indicated that there were issues with the brakes on the vehicle. The case is currently under investigation. However, the driver was charged with causing great bodily harm while operating with a revoked or suspended driver's license status. There are further charges which may be possible at the conclusion of the investigation on the case.
Questions?
I got just one thing to note. This is an area that does not have a sidewalk. So first thing that came into my mind when I saw this was, would the presence of sidewalks have prevented this crash? Because it sounds like it was a mid-block crossing, is that correct? He said from the west side to the east side of the street and involved a northbound vehicle. So the pedestrian was on the correct side, but then he was moving to, I guess you'd say, the wrong side of the street to be walking.
Correct. He, I believe, was cardinal direction heading towards the east because he lives several blocks east of where the location of the accident was.
So, and it's along the curve, so it was probably just kind of a natural progression for him to cross the street there. I'm guessing it's probably a routine thing for him, maybe.
Correct.
So maybe the presence would not have prevented it.
One of the things we are looking at is defective or faulty brakes on the vehicle. So potential of the driver being able to stop had equipment on the vehicle been working 100% correctly. At this point, is an unknown factor. I'm waiting for the reconstruction report to be completed and turned in.
Okay, any other questions? Harold?
Move to accept the report.
Okay. Motion made, second, received and placed on file. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 5, consideration with possible action on request for Alderman Slavic to discuss some measures to improve pedestrian safety for crossing Packland Drive at the intersection with Enos Road.
I'll just bring up the map real quick of the area and see now this is the request of the Alder and constituent.
While you're doing that,
Tom,
just
go
pass
ahead.
these out. Probably should have one for myself, too.
Oh.
Thank you. Okay, may I commence?
Yeah, I've read.
No, you go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. This was brought to my attention by a constituent, and she really wanted to be here tonight to speak to it, but her work schedule got adjusted and she had to work. So she asked me to represent it. I thought the best way to do that was to use her own words. This is the email that she sent me about this. It has to do with middle school students trying to cross Packerland Drive at Hennesrock. And as she says in here, she says the traffic frequently does not stop and kids get stranded out on the median island halfway across the street. And so she's appealing for the city to find some way of getting greater compliance from the traffic in that area and increasing the safety for those children.
Well, looking at this email here, maybe what we can do is start addressing some of these things and just look to see what we have for marking and signage. So this is northbound, so you can see we've got the signal advance ahead. And then this is the last intersection Enos is prior to the West Point signal. And we have a crosswalk, it looks like, crossing the east leg and the north leg. And we have these crossings shown as school crossings, so it's not just the standard pedestrian yellow sign. So this would be a fluorescent yellow-green installation for that, and it looks to me like we're having in the opposite, or in the southbound direction as well. I do frequent this corridor quite a bit, and I think maybe you can even tell from this imagery that the north-facing sign is probably a little bit lighter than the south-facing, which makes sense because of the southern exposure usually degrades our sign efficacy more so. So if you look at this sign, to me this looks like it's dull and faded over here versus the other one. So I guess from that perspective, the signs are not, I guess you'd say, equal. They may be equal in size and location and so forth, but I wouldn't really say that they're The retroreflectivity and colors is really the same. So that would be one deficiency. Crosswalk is at an intersection, so with the standard parallel lines demarcating the crosswalk is a standard application. One thing to note is that this is a county facility, so any sort of an improvement, let's say, I mean, I know there's reference to flashing lights and so forth, would definitely have to be something that would be approved by the county since it is technically their roadway. Other than that, I haven't done any research. I don't know if there's any sort of a crash history or anything there. Just anecdotally, from what I've seen driving it, I don't think I've ever seen a pedestrian cross there, but I would think that it makes sense during school time that Lombardi Middle students are crossing at this location, so that does make sense. The flashing light she's making reference to in the email is actually for a stop sign. And that again is a county facility at Lombard or Hazelwood and Shady, and that was just to improve stop compliance. So it's obviously different than this. It wasn't necessarily a complaint relative to motorists not stopping because of pedestrians. It's a four-way stop at this other location. So
So the one she's referencing is not at Shady and Cormier? She's mistaken on that street?
I believe so. Well,
There's
Shady,
flashing
Cormier-
lights.
Cormier is a two-way stop, Cormier
Oh, you
is
know what?
right away.
No, I take that back. I believe that does have a flashing
Yes,
light,
it
and
does.
it's a two-way stop. Yeah,
You're
that's
going
outside,
south.
it's not in the city, of course,
Right.
that's in Ashwaubenon.
You're going south on Shady.
Right,
The
right,
lights blink at you.
right.
I'm
Yep.
not sure the other direction they do, but
Right.
southbound they do.
Well, I guess if that is the example she's citing, does that mean that she's asking for flashing stop signs on Henis or at Packland?
I can't answer that. I mean, she's asking for improved safety for those pedestrians. I don't know that she's asking for one particular orientation or another.
Right, right.
Do we have a school crossing guard here?
I don't believe so.
Not on Packerland, no.
Is she asking for a rapid flashing beacon type of thing? Because she also mentions the Trojan Drive, and that was years ago. We talked about that and forwarded something to the county about
Mhm.
the rectangular rapid flashing.
Right. Well, I mean, I know she's talking about LED lights, and a lot of times, the public doesn't know a lot of the history and background of the application, so I think, Chuck, maybe your presumption could be correct, that she's probably looking for just some sort of a yellow flashing warning for peds or something to that nature. Anytime we take an intersection like this and look at some sort of a safety improvement, we like to get justification for that. And I'll just be frank, we get calls and complaints at almost every intersection for near misses, so it's very difficult for us to justify taxpayer dollars spent on near misses. We have locations that probably would need to have some sort of upgrades that don't have them, so in a case like this, I would say maybe the best thing to do is to refer this to staff for study, to just at least investigate to see if there is a crash issue with pedestrians. And if so, we can always report that back here and then decide what to do. Again, if there would be some sort of an improvement, let's just presume for a moment that we do have a pedestrian crash issue at this location, and we would recommend some sort of an improvement, which may be RRFB, then we would actually have to go to Brown County Public Works and ask them if this is an acceptable installation, and if they would want to contribute. Most of the time, they'd come back and say, City, you brought it up, if be more than happy if you guys want to do it, but you pay for it too. But we don't know until we investigate, and we would have to take it to that next level.
I drive that around 3 o'clock on some days. There are kids crossing Nisra at that point there, or whatever. Not a lot of kids, but I venture a guess that it's pretty much just kids that are
Right.
crossing. I don't think any adults, because it's not a great distance from West 9th Street up there.
Right. It must be all Lombardi Middle students. I mean, it couldn't be MLK. That'd be too far away.
Taking a shortcut
I think
or
it's
the back.
middle schoolers.
Yeah.
the back street up in Lombardi.
Right, because Henistra, if you continue that west, that tees into South Point, which is right over by Lombardi.
I'll make a motion to refer to staff for study.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thanks, Alderman.
Thank you.
Wayne.
Good time.
4, initial request, consideration with possible action on the request by Alderman Dorf to determine if no parking signs can be placed on the newly installed guardrail in front of 2503 Sussex Road.
Okay, this was supposed to be on the last agenda and was not, so we placed it on this one. As you may have remembered, that was kind of a document that got stuck in my inbox because I was on vacation. So I did apologize, but anyway, here we are today. The location is located kind of in that Red Smith School area, just south of there, south of Scottwood. And this is really where, you know, the southern end of Sussex, and it curves to the east into Champeau Road. I do have another diagram here I'd like to show you, just because this is it's right at our corporate limit. So I think that's kind of an important thing to look at as part of this discussion. So what you see in this grayed out area is I believe it's town of Green Bay, or is it town of Scott? I believe it's Scott. And this, regardless, not the city of Green Bay. So anything that, okay. So what you see here in this regular tone here, this is all city of Green Bay. So anything past this point and to the east, we don't have any jurisdiction over controlling any of the parking. So, but anyway, the concern, I guess, you know, having discussions with Barb, and please, Barb, correct me in any time during this discussion, is that there are vehicles that are parking around this corner, and the residents are concerned that it's a safety issue. And I know this kind of comes on the heels of this guardrail or beam guard being replaced. Someone had actually hit it. It was initially installed a number of years ago, probably 6-7 years ago plus now. And the reason it was installed, it was a motion by Improvement Service Committee and ultimately Council to install it, but there was, at one time there was a, I guess you call it more major crash. There was actually someone hauling a race car. I think they were coming back from the races, the driver, and he had lost control, went through this way and kind of got back over, and it just wasn't a good situation. And I confirmed that today. Actually, I had gone out and I talked with Donna. Donna's the lady in the corner,
Yes.
and I just happened to get her when she was home. And I also did have a discussion with the lady across the street from me. She doesn't live in the city of Green Bay, but she still was able to provide some information. So from what I understood, speaking directly with them, is that they're not as concerned with necessarily people parking here during the day. It seems like it's more of a nighttime thing. At least that was the concern of not Donna, but the other lady.
Okay.
That, like, after 8 p.m., you know, why are people parking in that area and going to that trail when really the trail should be closed at that time? You know, it's more of a daytime walking, you know, it's the Arboretum Trail for UWGB. So that was her primary concern. Of course, you know, the things came up about, you know, still the speeding and things around like that. But one thing to know, again, I'll just reiterate, the beam guard was reconstructed due to being struck. And when we reconstructed this time, it was slightly adjusted to, I guess, bring it up to code and standard. It has a proper energy absorbing terminal on it, and I think it actually kind of reduced to that area of shoulder in this space, right about here where I'm shown on the display. So I'll show you some photos. I actually brought the car out there. You can see what really is happening. So this is actually Donna's driveway, 2503, and I'm parked almost right up to that, you know, back end of my vehicle is right up to that energy absorbing terminal. That's what we call those ends. So as you can clearly see, I'm parked into the roadway. Definitely not enough space here for a vehicle to stay in their appropriate lane. And so I moved the vehicle around so you can kind of get an idea how this is all laid out. Now I'm moving it back, or I'm moving this further to the north. So her driveway is actually in front of my car here. The reason I wanted to take this picture is to show you that not only there's issues with parking right next to the energy absorbing terminal and beam guard, but the way that this street is constructed, there's very little shoulder, and the force slope of the typical section, it's kind of a steep, kind of goes into the ditch at a pretty steep rate. So you can see this is where I felt the most, if I would have went any more to the right, it would have been uncomfortable. And obviously, if you have a passenger, they can't really get out. You're walking right, you're walking down. Here it's even further back, and you can see this was probably the best and most flattest area for that force slope. And even if you continue to the north towards Scotwood, it actually continues to get worse. And it just happened to be that, the flow line of the ditch just happened to be at its highest point probably here. Well, I mean, this is kind of a downgrade, but, so I did verify that. To be quite frank, I don't think really parking should be allowed on Sussex at all. If you had, let's just say, I don't know, maybe a special event or something like that, a rummage sale or whatever like that, and you had a street parked up, you'd never be able to get two vehicles through at one time. It's only a 22-foot roadway, so you get two 11-foot travel lanes. And when I went out there and I was measuring, just I just usually use my foot, 1 foot, I was getting about 7 foot, 7 foot width, and it's definitely something standard. Now, what I wanted to show you is actually areas where it actually starts to widen out, because that roadway shoulder is basically continued right up to the entrance of that trail, so it widens out in this area. So it seems to be like a pretty acceptable place to park a vehicle. It's not in the way of the travel lane. I think I got some other pictures here to show that it doesn't really get in the way of the signs. Well, I don't have one in front of here. This one may have to get adjusted up if there would be someone here. This one seemed to be fine. That's something that could be double checked, but I didn't necessarily see it as a bad thing to park there, and we all know that there's a trailhead, so naturally if there's a trailhead that was built up to this roadway, that there's probably people that use it.
How many parking spots safely can you put there?
Roughly 3. I'm going to estimate 3, maybe 4 vehicles. Well, actually, I'll show you here. I would say, not blocking it would be a good idea, so maybe, 2 to 3 spots. But once you continue into the town of Scott over here, it does flatten out. So, you could fit 2 to 3 around here, keeping that open. And then this area over here, I think, is an acceptable place to park. It was flat enough. It's mowed by the town. And I didn't really see a problem with parking there. And obviously, we don't have jurisdiction restricted there. But I guess I always think of, and I'm sure that we think of it, or the commissioners as well, is that anytime you restrict parking, you're typically pushing a problem somewhere else. So in this case, I look at this as, let's just say that it was partially restricted. There's no doubt that there needs to be some sort of restriction on Sussex, to the extent, I guess, is to be determined. However, once you start getting around that corner and start traveling to the east, I think there's probably enough spaces on the shoulder for enough users. I can't imagine that there's, up to 10 cars there or something at a time. That just seems to be a high number. But you probably, width around the curve and in this area, and I think I got another picture showing going the other way. Yeah, this is all pretty wide here. You could fit more than 10 cars total. So by restricting, let's just presume the worst case here, and maybe this is a little bit out of context of the request, but even if all of Sussex was restricted all the way up to Scotwood, and people still needed to use this trail, I think that there would be ample parking, at least for trail users. Now, the only reason I looked further north is I needed to find a spot, because I really do believe that there should be some restrictions because of the beam guard location and that encroachment. So I had to find a northern limit to where to establish that. Well, my northern limit is Scotwood. I mean, I really can't tell you anything else that I would strongly believe in, and, you know, with my licensure and everything, but I just don't think it's a safe idea to park on that roadway.
So maybe this becomes a bigger no parking than when I initially asked for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but looking at the aerial though, you know, I can go back into this over here. You can see there's, the good thing is that this is all farm field with the exception of this house and then, of course, Donna's place.
It's her daughter.
Yeah, and, you know, obviously Donna's got quite a bit of area on her property that if, you know, she would have some sort of a gathering or something like that, I think that she's got plenty of space to have vehicles. The only question would be any of these other residences here, but they have pretty wide driveways and, you know, it's hard to tell distance here, but I think they got, you know, enough that if they had some overnight company or something, they could probably accommodate them. Now, when it comes down to rummage sales and things like that, I really don't know what kind of demand that they would have on it, but parking on the street probably would not be a good idea. But, and it is, Sussex is a collector roadway, so, you know, that's something else to consider.
So what do you recommend?
Probably something that the residents don't want to hear. When I mentioned it to Donna and the lady across the street, they didn't seem to have a problem with it.
They're the
When I
ones that
said-
requested no
Right.
parking.
They're the ones that requested, but that's just this area. I mean, to me, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other residences that would be impacted, and 1 in the city. Now, the corporate limit, as you remember, is actually more towards this right, or this east right-of-way line, so City of Green Bay does have jurisdiction over both sides of Sussex.
But when it was reconstructed, the people on that side of the street didn't have to pay the assessment, and the people on that side of the street did have to pay the assessment.
Right.
Wow.
Because Thomas and poor Donna had quite a hit.
Yeah, no, she told me it
16,000, yeah, I know.
was like
It's
17
huge,
grand or something.
huge amount.
Yeah.
She's a widow.
So, yeah, and that was last year, is when the road was reconstructed.
Mhm.
But it was pretty much, you know, replaced back in kind, you know, with the width and everything.
I know her daughter lives in the house, the next house up. That's her daughter's house.
Oh, this one is?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
So if one were to make a motion to go all the way up to Scottwood based upon your field review, does that have to go on the agenda for the next time because this was only down here, or?
That's a good question. You know, we're really to be looking at the request at hand, but the request at hand, because I made a recommendation in agreement, at least a partial agreement with the request, led me, it kind of opened up a can of worms, so it is related.
We can wait.
I mean, to be quite frank, it's really kind of up to you, Barb. I mean, if you feel that you should maybe talk to some of these people and.
Well, they're not in Green Bay, and Donna and her daughter are the only ones in Green Bay.
Right.
And they would not be bothered by that, so.
Right.
I don't know what,
Yeah,
I talked to Thomas Scott people.
Did
And
you look at both sides, or just the one side, or both sides the same?
both sides are the same. And to be quite frank, these all go in a 90-day trial, so there may be, you know, some people that come up and go, hey, we don't like this, and then they could always come back 3 months from now at Traffic Commission and.
So how does it work? Do we go to Town of Scott? Is it a county thing then? I mean, that's what it's confusing me, because that side is not District 1 anymore, that's county.
The private end is not, but the street is. The street is completely within the city.
Okay, so would I talk to people that are not in the city? That's my question.
I guess really you don't have to, because you don't represent them.
I can tell Tom Seaver.
Yeah,
I could-
yeah, you could always have that discussion, but like I said, 90-day trials, that's the purpose of a 90-day
Okay,
trial.
to
is
see if there's a
If
problem.
there's adjustments that
Yes.
need to
I like
happen and
that
things
idea.
like that.
Okay, Yeah.
You know, like I said, looking at my, my PE license, I can't recommend anything else, because I just don't think it's safe to have parking on that street,
Either side,
both
or
sides.
just worried about?
Both sides.
The one other
okay.
little plug I'll put in is, nothing should be attached to beam guard posts, because when beam guard gets hit, it deflects up to 4 feet, so you don't want to attach signs, traffic signs to beam guard posts. So
So you
just
have it like on a pole next to the,
behind it,
okay.
and just, the request was to attach it to the beam guard. You don't want to do that for safety reasons.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. I just, okay. Well then, how about if I make a motion, if it's appropriate, to do a 90-day trial of no parking on both sides of the street on that area of Sussex Road?
Okay. Now, in order to, as I was saying, there still are going to be path users. They're still going to want a place to park. From my determination, from the corporate limit, you could go about 40 feet
Okay,
from there to safely park vehicles.
okay,
Anything beyond that and north is not safe.
okay.
So that's what,
Up till
kind of
40
what Chuck was saying. Actually, if you look at this house, this is how I determined it from the field. If you would extend the southern wall, face of her house, that's about where the limit is.
Okay.
So anything that would be south of that, south and east of that, should be okay. And
Okay.
anything north of that point is not safe.
All right.
Put that in the motion.
That's your motion?
That's my motion.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Motion been made, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Termination of trial period 6, establish a no parking zone on both sides of Elm Street from Madison Street to Monroe Avenue.
This was supposed to be on the last agenda too, but didn't make it. But so this was connected to all those removals that we had. We had 4 termination trials on the last agenda, which were approved. So this one follows suit, so I make that recommendation.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion made, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Entertain a motion to adjourn, unless there's anything else somebody's got.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made, seconded to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Or adjourned. It's not too bad for you.
No.